Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and uncover how a 200-year-old architectural secret could completely revolutionize the way you cool your home. We're looking at a genuinely fascinating subject today. It highlights how modern building techniques have, well, kind of just forgotten a massive, highly effective cooling method, one that is actually still perfectly preserved right now in Amish communities. What if I told you that getting incredible temperature drops in your house doesn't require a high-tech smart thermostat or, thousands of dollars in HVAC upgrades? What if it just took a few bucks and a little bit of forgotten wisdom? Let's unpack exactly how this works.
To really appreciate the solution, we first need to vividly picture the problem. Imagine it's the dead of July. Your thermostat is set to 68 degrees and your air conditioner is absolutely roaring. But just above your head, in a space you probably only poke your head into twice a year, the temperature is literally baking at past 140 degrees Fahrenheit. That intense heat just presses down, turning your ceiling into a massive radiator. So your AC is struggling down below, the power meter is spinning endlessly, and honestly, your house isn't being protected from the heat, it's actively being cooked by it.
And this fundamentally shifts how we need to look at what an attic is actually for. Historically, an attic was designed as a sacrificial buffer. It was built to be a breathable layer of air that took the brutal punishment of the summer sun, completely absorbing the blow so the living spaces down below stayed nice and comfortable. But in American houses built since roughly the 1960s, we totally abandoned this idea. Builders started sealing the attics up tight, stuffing them full of insulation, and effectively turned them into sealed furnaces. The heat gets trapped up there, and the modern building industry's only real answer is just, well, to sell you a bigger air conditioning unit to fight it. Part 1. The Stack Effect Engine. Let's look at cooling without power. So how exactly did the Amish avoid this heat trap entirely? Well, when you don't use electric air conditioning, every single architectural decision has to actually work in brutal heat. And one of their most prominent features is the cupola. Now, this isn't just some decorative wooden tower sitting on top of a barn roof. A functional cupola features a clear, vertical shaft running straight down through the attic, sometimes right into a second-floor hallway. It acts just like an engine. Because hot air always rises, right? In a sealed modern attic, it just sits there and bakes. But the cupola gives that intense heat an escape route, a chimney. The hottest air climbs up the shaft, exits through the louvers, and as it leaves, it creates a vacuum. That vacuum naturally pulls cooler air in from the lower windows of the house. Engineers call this buoyancy-driven ventilation, or the stack effect. Basically, it's a house built to exhale. And just to put some hard numbers to how immensely powerful this simple architectural feature is, take a look at this. A University of Florida Extension Service paper from 1943, which, remember, was written during wartime when residential AC was pretty much unheard of, proved that adding a working cupola to a wood-framed farmhouse resulted in massive temperature drops of 14 to 19 degrees Fahrenheit inside the upstairs rooms. Almost 20 degrees. And again, that is without a single watt of electricity. It's just an incredible piece of data that's essentially been sitting in a dusty archive for 80 years. Part 2, the $4 cotton fix. Let's dig into an amazing Amish secret. Now, I hear you. Maybe you can't go cutting a giant hole in your roof to build a custom cupola this weekend. That brings us to a fascinating, previously unwritten secret sourced directly from Amish carpenters in Holmes County, Ohio. It doesn't require a cupola at all, and the solution costs exactly $4. $4. That tiny sum buys enough material to cover the attic ridge of an average 1,600 square foot home. Look, in a world of multi-$1,000 HVAC upgrades, a $4 fix sounds almost too good to be true, but the mechanics behind it are incredibly solid. Let's walk through exactly how this works. Up inside their attics, right where the rafters meet the peak of the roof, the Amish nails strips of plain, untreated cotton muslin cloth across the underside of the roof boards. When the roof deck heats up to, say, 160 degrees in the afternoon, it radiates heat straight downward. The cotton muslin physically breaks that radiant heat, but it does something else that's completely brilliant. It absorbs a small amount of moisture from the cooler night air. Then, during the baking heat of the following day, the cotton slowly releases that moisture. It creates an evaporative cooling layer right at the absolute source of the heat. Think of it exactly like placing a wet bandana on the back of your neck on a hot day, but applied to the hottest part of your house. Now, this obviously raises a pretty compelling question. If this works so well, why isn't it common knowledge? Well, the argument outlined in the sources is that an entire ecosystem of industries financially benefits from homes that cannot breathe. Utility companies profit because your AC is working overtime. Shingle manufacturers profit because that trapped 140-degree heat literally cooks the shingles from the underside, which cuts their lifespan in half. The HVAC and insulation industries, and even building code committees dating back to the 1970s energy crisis, all benefit economically from the standard practice of sealed attics.
The explainer frames this not as some shadowy conspiracy, but just as an entrenched financial system that simply forgot a much better, older way of doing things. Part 3, Replicating the System Today. How to use what you already have. So, the crucial takeaway here is how you can actually apply this lost knowledge to your own home right now without having to rebuild anything. Here is a highly actionable playbook to restore passive airflow. First, grab a flashlight and inspect your gable vents. You know, those triangular vents on the short, peaked ends of your attic. Most of them are totally clogged with 30-year-old blown-in insulation, bad paint jobs, or bird nests. You need to clear that debris out. If the screens are rusted over, just replace them with fresh aluminum mesh for about $3. Finally, you set up what's called a night draw. After sunset, when the air finally cools down, open the lowest windows on the shaded side of your house just a few inches. The hot, trapped attic air will exit those newly cleared gable vents, pulling that beautiful, cool night air all the way through your living space. And to supercharge this setup, we have a very specific trick from Eli Miller, an Amish carpenter in Mount Hope, Ohio. He takes that exact same $4 white cotton muslin we talked about, and he hangs it directly across the inside of the gable vent on the sunny side of the house. It acts as an amazing radiant filter. It lets the air flow through perfectly, but it physically blocks the direct, punishing, radiant heat of the afternoon sun from getting inside. By doing this one simple thing, Eli noted his uncle's attic runs about 18 degrees cooler in August than the neighboring attics on the exact same road. But, and this is a big but, to make this truly work, your attic must be allowed to breathe. Modern construction often completely breaks this system. So, the sources suggest that if you want to replicate the Amish success, you have to undo 3 specific modern ceiling practices, in this exact order. First, remove any blown-in insulation that is packed tightly against the actual roof rafters. Second, eliminate vapor barriers stapled directly to the underside of the roof deck. And third, unseal any gable vents that an energy auditor might have told you to plug up with spray foam. Now, naturally, you might have some real concerns about humidity and pests if you go opening your house up like this. That's a totally fair question. But the argument here is that moving air actually prevents moisture rot. It's trapped, stagnant air that causes condensation and mold. With continuous 24/7 airflow, water vapor never gets a chance to settle on your wood. As for the pests, the old builders use fine horsehair or copper screens. Today, you can just use 1/8 inch stainless steel mesh. It totally keeps out the bats and the wasps, but it maintains that absolute crucial airflow. And importantly, restoring this proper ventilation actually protects your roof warranty because it stops your expensive shingles from baking from the inside out. Part 4, this summer kitchen draft. A brilliant 1946 cooling engine. Let's dive into what is arguably the climax of this explainer. Beyond the attic, there's a totally different cooling technique buried deep in a 1946 Penn State Farm Bulletin by a Professor Walter F. Shaw. He documented how traditional Pennsylvania Dutch farmhouses used their kitchen stoves not just for cooking, but as deliberate low-pressure engines to ventilate the entire home. Here's the exact method. In the early evening, crack the window near your stove about 4 inches. Then go open a window on the complete opposite side of your house, also 4 inches. Finally, turn just one burner on your gas or electric range to the lowest possible setting for about 40 minutes. Get this. The rising heat from that single low burner creates a localized vacuum. It exhausts right out the nearby window, and as it does, it actively pulls cool evening air in from the opposite window, dragging a breeze through the rest of the house. The results from the testing are staggering. They recorded a 2.5 mile-per-hour breeze that dropped a living room from 81 degrees down to 73 degrees in just 52 minutes. And the total energy cost for doing this? About 4.4 cents. Just imagine standing in an Amish kitchen back in 1998, smelling rising bread and wood smoke, and watching this multi-generational technique cool an entire farmhouse for literal pennies. Part 5, Reclaiming Lost Knowledge, the Philosophy of Self-Reliance. So, why was this incredibly effective historical knowledge perfectly preserved in Amish communities while the rest of us entirely forgot it? The philosophical core of this whole explainer really lies in a profound conversation with Bishop Eli Miller. He stated, "We reject technology when it makes us dependent. We accept technology that makes us more capable, more self-reliant. The cupola, the gable vents, the cotton muslin, they aren't rejecting progress. They view these architectural elements as technologies that belong to them, things they can build, understand, and fix with their own hands. It's a deliberate, conscious choice to maintain self-reliance rather than outsourcing their baseline comfort to a system they don't control." Which brings us to our final provocative thought to leave you with. Are you currently paying $300 a month to a utility company to do badly what your great-grandfather did for free? This explainer is ultimately about reclaiming your own capability. So, here is your real-world takeaway. Grab a flashlight this weekend. Climb up there and inspect those gable vents. See if they are clogged, painted shut, or sealed with foam. It's time to rethink our total reliance on modern, expensive systems. And maybe, just maybe, let our houses breathe again.